Okay, everyone, welcome to our practice tonight. I'm Lama Rod for those of you who are new. I think we have a couple of new people. Um, of course, this is our Medicine Buddha practice, a guided practice based upon the tradition of Medicine Buddha coming out of Tibetan Buddhist tradition. And um, Feel free to introduce yourself, maybe where you're coming in from, and so forth. So, welcome. It's good to see everyone. Good to see you, Shelly, and Denise. Two different parts of the country. Um, yeah, and whenever you're ready, you can go ahead and add any prayer requests that you may have as well. All right. Just gonna wait a couple more minutes as usual for people to get into the space before we begin. Um, I'm trying to remember what we talked about last week. Um, what were we talking about? Oh, we're talking about Atlantis. Because it was either Atlantis or Matrix last week. Um, and we did Atlantis. Well, what? Why we were talking about Atlantis? Um, I think about not the Matrix. We were talking about shifts in cultures and societies and looking at the apocalypse and about how people who study kind of lost civilizations like Atlantis um, believe that Atlantis went through a similar kind of shift that we're moving through right now in the world, but they didn't quite survive it. So, yeah. So, are there any questions? So, questions go into the ask a question uh, chat box at the bottom of the screen as well. Yeah, and yeah, go ahead and start putting prayer requests as well. Yes, as always, it's important for us to acknowledge that there's so much happening, for many of us right now in the world. Um, and we want to bring um, these things into our practice right now. Uh-oh, I think I lost. Did I lose everyone? Huh. Oops. Am I still on? Okay, I'm still on. Sorry, I got a little confused. I started opening and closing windows and I lost the screen. So yeah, go ahead and start. Yeah, any prayer requests? It's been a little bit of a long day for me. Um, so I'm trying to like stay focused and everything. But yeah, lots happening. And so as we're getting prayer requests and everything and people still coming into the room, I'll go ahead with this question from Shelley. How do we allow space and take action at the same time? Well, it's really about how we move from the space, well, how we move from reactivity to responsiveness. So responsiveness happens within a sense of space. Um, because when we're just reacting to something without, just habitually. So when I say habitual reactivity, I'm saying that it's just an automatic response. It's a compulsory response to something that arises for us in our minds. So something arises and we're instantly reacting. So that's what I mean by habitual reactivity or compulsory reactivity, right? When you're habitually reacting to something, there's no space. Um, but space opens when we're able to name and notice what arises and even experience what arises. And that experiencing, the space opens up, right? Because the experiencing has taken the place of reacting. Reactivity isn't experiencing, you know. Um, reactivity is just reactivity. You feel it. You don't really experience it, you just feel it. It's like you feel like you touch the stove, you feel the heat really quickly. You get a little reactivity to it and you jump back, right? That's how most of us are. That's how we build these kind of realities and narratives for ourselves. Is these realities and narratives are based upon just reacting over and over and over again, right? Until we start actually learning how to experience what arises for us. And that changes the situation because all of a sudden you're not creating the space, but the space opens up. You notice the space that's always been there, but you never noticed because you've been busy reacting. Like you haven't stuck around to actually lead into the space. So in experiencing, we can make a choice in how we respond to everything. So this doesn't make sense to a lot of us because we're kind of in the cycle of reactivity to everything. And this didn't make sense to me either when I first began practicing as well. I was like, this is impossible. How do we respond to something? Because I don't feel as if I have agency to respond. I feel like I'm just reacting over and over again. But over years of practice, then the work of experiencing helped me to understand how to move into a space of responsiveness. Over time, responsiveness gets as quick as reactivity. Like you can feel it really quickly and respond, right? And that responsiveness is a knowingness, is an awareness of exactly what's happening in the moment and exactly what's happening. So when you have that awareness, you can make a choice to respond in a way that doesn't necessarily um, escalate harm or violence in the situation, but can actually reduce it. Um, so everything that's going on for us, right? Just with the world, with our lives, with our families, and so forth. There's a lot of reactivity, and that's part of what creates this kind of emotional kind of fatigue for many of us, because we're not really holding space, we're just responding to everything. We watch the news and it's like, oh, um, it's just like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. I can't believe that is happening, and so forth, right? Instead of like just allowing yourself to experience what's arising. But it's more than experiencing too. Like experiencing is the bare bones of this. But we also, as we practice often in this space, you want to lean back into experiences that rise out of the space, like um, gratitude, joy, happiness, right? No matter what's happening, there's always something to be grateful for. And that's something that I cultivate, I take refuge in my practice. No matter how shitty things are, there's something to be grateful for. Of course, that may take widening our meditation, or what we consider like. So, well, another way to put this is that we look for the small things to be grateful for, but how do we start being grateful for the larger things? Like, for instance, in the lineage, one of the things that we're grateful for is having a human life. This, we call it the precious human rebirth. We could have been born in this incarnation countless things, like animals and different kinds of spirits and other kinds of beings. But we were born into this particular life form. And this is a special occurrence because we have the capacity to think about and to practice transcendence. You know, um, we would think we have the capacity to think about the divine, right, and to think about the ultimate, the absolutes. To think about it and to practice it and to experience it. This is why this is such a precious experience, that we can practice for and touch into the expression, the experience of the absolute. So, even as I'm saying this, I also feel as if we're going to be doing a little bit of breath work tonight. Um, pranayama, and which, this isn't new at all, of course. But I think I wanted to do something really intensive with the breath, not necessarily trying to awaken chakras and trying to do, that kind of awakening. But like some of us, that's just kind of a natural thing that happens when we work with the breath, that the chakras begin to open. Um, but just like, I don't know, I don't want to kind of go into um, the absolutes, into the emptiness tonight. Um, Again, we've done this quite a bit before. Um, but when we talk about going, right, just like folding into, transitioning into like the absolutes, it's not about bypassing anything, because I think getting to the absolute is about going through the relative. It's going through the relative arising of thoughts and emotions and just things. Um, but going into the absolute, it can be quite restorative as well. This is a restorative experience. Not something that we need to cling to. Like, you can't cling to it. It's like you go in, you feel that you expand, you come out. You know, um, the experience of the absolute or the ultimate is, you really don't have to go anywhere. Transcendence is a tough word to really practice with, because it feels like you're going to transcend, to transition, to move, to go somewhere, and you're not going anywhere. It's more as if, well, we talked about this last week. I think it's more of shifting your vibration. You know, it's ramping the vibration up a little bit, where we actually begin to like expand right into the essence of things. And of course, that vibration happens through everything that we do, in our practice together, through the chanting, through the visualizations, through the gratitude practice and the earth practice and so forth. Praying to medicine Buddha, prayer uh, raises the vibration. The relative is an experience of lower vibrations. The ultimate is the experience of very high vibration. Everything is energy, and energy vibrates in different frequencies. Um, so when some of you have these experiences in practice where you feel like very lightheaded and, struggling to touch the ground in certain ways, that's the experience of you vibrating really high. And if that's not something that you can just hold and work with, or you have to get out of that, because you have other things to do, then for me, it's coming back to the earth. It's again bringing my attention back to the earth, allowing the energy of the earth to pull me back into the body, to the earth, into the relative. This is why we always do this. Is why at the end of really every practice that I do, I talk about coming back to the weight of the body, or to the earth, to something grounding and solid, because that's going to start settling out our vibration. And there's so much, like the internet, there's so much, when we talk about like toxic energy, or when we say sometimes, oh, bad energy, or whatever, like we use, whatever language we have to talk about, just energy doesn't feel good. It feels heavy. It feels dark. Um, that's our recognition of low vibrational energy, you know. Um, and what spiritual practice is helping us do, again, is to vibrate a little higher, that we're vibrating to the level of, well, what, to the place where other beings abide, basically. Channeling is just raising one's vibration. Once your mind is like really connected to uh, different vibrations, then that's when the data starts to down. It's like your mind becomes a funnel, and things just start getting poured down into you, into your mind, into your body. Plant medicine raises it takes you right up there real quick. It like just revs you up, right? Until you go right into these kinds of mental states. The, the point isn't to stay. It's not to stay in these mental states, right? It's to develop a wisdom. It's to develop clarity, spaciousness, to bring that back down into the body, into the relative, to begin to learn how to move the relative at a higher vibrational level. Let's see, correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember from Love and Rage that you have said that we have to love the ugliest parts of ourselves, including horrors like racism, homophobia, and more, and love as in not like, but accept. Perhaps similar to no mud, no lotus. I try to practice this. I'm interested to learn more from you on how you have worked through these types of traumatizing, shameful parts of yourselves and working through them without over-identifying with the experiences of these thoughts. It's exactly what I've been talking about. It's like it's recognizing that the essence, the nature of trauma is space emptiness. you know, there's an absolute nature to everything, right? And what I am relating to when I relate to trauma is a low kind of vibrational experience, right? And what I've had to do and practice, and this is what tantric meditation practice is about actually beginning to touch into the true nature of things. The true nature of trauma isn't suffering, the true nature of trauma is freedom. But that's the true nature of everything. So that's how I've trained in this. Of course, when you start doing that, then you begin to understand, oh, there are ways in which even suffering is teaching me. It's teaching me actually how to get free because it's actually asking me to go deeper. Not staying at this low frequency level, but going higher and saying that, like, oh, this suffering is an expression of something actually much more pure and much more freeing and spacious than what I am initially identifying with. You know. So when I talk about like loving racism, again, you're correct. It's not about accepting. Well, I'm sorry. It's not about liking it, right? But it's about seeing what it really is. That's where the freedom starts to happen. Or we talk about identity, like yes, I identify as Black and I also understand the nature of race for myself now, or I have a clearer picture of the nature of race, right? And that frees me from how identity becomes rigid and limiting for me, right? And it allows us to be open to change and transition and fluidity. This is what starts allowing us to enter into the flow of what's really happening, because this is flow. Like there's a flow here, um, which is and that whole theory of the flow is like a whole another thing that I'm not going to get into right, not necessarily right now, um, but the question is, I mean, and again, I want to recognize how impossible all this seems to many of us who are just beginning to work with these kinds of practices, or we're just kind of new to Buddhist psychology, philosophy, right? Like this is like it's hard to understand or experience the nature, the freeing, liberatory nature of something that has always been an experience of deep suffering for us, right? But this is what years of practice helps us to do. It helps us to keep going further and further, piercing deeper and deeper into the nature of something, till you get to its most essential nature, which is its essence. Like shame isn't like a huge thing for me anymore. It used to be a huge thing for me, of course, but I can just experience shame. And I'm saying, oh, yeah, that's shame, you know. People are always like, how can you talk about sex in the way that I just gave this documentary this, I don't know, a show, was it a show, a documentary about me that's coming out in a couple of months. I'm just like sitting there talking about sex and like, all kinds of like transgressive sex and this and that and my practices and what I do. I mean, it's just like I don't carry the fear anymore. Because one of the things I've realized, of course, is like, yeah, the nature of all this, but also I've realized that like, I'm not the only one, you know, that engage in certain practices. Like, there's lots of people who are waiting for someone like me to say these things, to start unpacking the shame for people, or at least offering um, an example of what it looks like to unpack, these, the impact of shame. And it takes courage, but like I've said several times before, I've been really interested in freedom my whole life, right? Social freedom, also ultimate freedom. Because I have every intention of getting enlightened as quickly as possible, that has driven me to practice really intensely, you know, I keep doing the hard stuff over and over again to a point where like it's even hard to let up, you know. So in my practice, and I think this is the case with some of you, I go really hard, you know. Like if the practice isn't hard, I find I'm not interested in it. you know? um, I have, I don't know if this is good or bad. I'm still working with unpacking this, but like I have a deep love for like struggle, you know. What I mean by love, I also mean I like the struggle, you know. Which I'll have to like explore that more, as well. So I'm not saying that's good. I'm just saying that's what's happening, right? Um, and again, this is another part of the practice. It's like you don't have to get so involved with, well, whether something is good or bad. You're just naming it and saying, "Well, this is happening. I don't know if it's good or bad. Like I'll get to that, but I have to name it first." Okay, everyone, if you haven't put prayer requests up, go ahead and do it. Okay, so I can't trust my mind. Hmm. As my practice deepens and widens and lengthens, um, can't trust my mind. Is okay. So as my practice deepens and widens and lengthens over the past few years, through the pandemic, I'm coming up against deep somatic reactive patterns needing to bust into and unravel these patterns, whatever it takes. I cannot trust my mind in this territory. Can you comment on this, connecting with a teacher or not, and how to, especially in the pandemic in white ass Vermont and with limited means? Um, but at least Vermont has like really great maple syrup. Um, I think the cheese in Vermont, as well as the coffee, is pretty good. Um, anyhow, um, I don't know. I don't know if trusting the mind is like that big of a thing. I mean, um, what we're doing um, is the mind does what it does, right? And that's something you have to reflect on because that's not a value judgment. That is a statement of a basic fact the mind is doing, right? Another basic statement is that the mind is. Um, to develop awareness of the mind, to begin to pay attention to the mind and to the expansiveness of the mind, to the material of the mind, isn't necessarily about trusting the mind or believing in the mind. It's just noticing what the mind is doing. Now, what you're talking about is the collecting data in order to respond to what's arising in the mind, and that's not what the most important practice is at the moment. You know, I mean, there's lots of things that are happening in the mind. There are lots of things that arise for us because we are, in different levels in terms of our neural divergent, experiences. And again, like all I'm doing is just noticing what's happening, you know, developing a kind of responsiveness. But, I'm not trying to necessarily get to the responsiveness in this part of the practice. I'm just like noticing, naming. It's like, oh yeah, that's happening. You know, again, it's like I use this analogy of the ocean and the mind, or the ocean-like mind analogy rather. Is that yeah? There's the ocean and there are waves rising up, above the ocean, but we may call these things waves, but we never say that the waves are made of different material than the ocean. The waves and the ocean are water, right? And the waves are just a different form that this water is taking that makes it seem separate from the whole. When we're watching the mind, everything that arises from the mind is just waves rising from the ocean of the mind. Right? So when I see something in the mind, I say, well, that's the mind, you know. But you go deeper than that too. Give me a second. I want to pull this out as well. Oh, life is just a meditation, actually. You know, meditating, being in meditation and post meditation are actually the same experiences. It's just us that creates the difference. You know, going to sleep and having a dream and waking up to the reality is the same thing that's happening, you know. But in order for us to make sense of this phenomena of the relative, we have to create these labels and create boundaries. Um, but you can erase the boundaries and still be in the world. You know. Now, I really, I don't think I have the words to go any further than that right now, because the rest is getting into experience that I haven't developed language for. Um, but there's something else too that wants to be articulated. It's just going to take a minute for that to kind of come out. Um, I don't know if this will actually make sense, but this is the language that's coming to me. um, I think there is this, I want to call it a fundamental anxiety. It's a very strong anxiety. It's a fundamentally strong anxiety when we start getting close to the truth of how, or the both the truth and the experience of how boundless and expansive the mind really is. As I've talked about before, which meaning we never talk about in Buddhism, is that one of the ways to really get free is to become extremist, right? You have to go deep into the materialism, and then you have to spring to the other extreme, into the nihilism. Like in a way, you're like bouncing from extreme to extreme because you're trying. It's like a pendulum, like you're swinging from extreme to extreme, and then slowly you begin to come into this kind of equilibrium. And that equilibrium, this middle space, the middle way, technically, is when we begin to integrate the experiences of both extremes of materialism and nihilism, of form and emptiness together. And what most of us are trying to do, we're trying to shortcut the extremism and just get to the equilibrium, but that's never going to work because we don't have the wisdom of the extremes to rely on. The wisdom of the extremes is what changes the view. Without extremism, you will not have a full view, a composite view of the expansiveness of everything. Well, I think hence, I think it's you're trying to hold on. I think you're trying to hold on. It's like an outdated operating system. Like you're trying to hold on to this operating system that's actually not serving you anymore. And so the anxiety comes about when we're trying to let go of everything. Well, the anxiety comes. I'm sorry, that didn't make any sense. The anxiety comes. The experience of anxiety is trying to negotiate what it means to let go of this limited, rigid understanding of who we are. Because when we expand out of this old operating system, then we have to let go of all the shit that we have used to establish a sense of self and identity. And we're afraid of what the alternative is. We're terrified of freedom and space because we're so identified with self. Right? This is why so many people aren't doing the project of liberation, because of that terror. Like there's a wall of terror here. I can call it anxiety too, but it's really terror at this point. There's a wall of terror, that you have to pass through to get into the freedom. And it's terrifying because you begin to see what you have to let go of. And some of us aren't ready to make that choice. You're not ready to leap off of the ledge. That's neither good or bad. By the way, it's just a statement of a reality. You're just not ready to step off that ledge because you actually haven't done the work of extremism to understand that there's no ledge to jump off of. Ooh, well, shit. Now I'm talking about the Matrix again. Whoever thought I would end up back in the Matrix? I'll tell you what, Lorena, and this is like really like my experience. Some of the most realized, accomplished spiritual practitioners were people who were just fucking out of control at one point in their life. I mean, really, like there's something there, you know. But what's really amazing is when you can party like it's 1999 and you never forget who and what you are. That's when you become a badass. When you can consciously, this is what bodhisattvas do, when you can consciously hit extremes and you never lose awareness of who you are. You never get lost. You never buy into the illusion, but you can go there and come right back. I mean, so a lot of us are just operating out of really outdated versions of who we thought we were or who we think we are. You know, I can just say from personal experience, yeah, it's terrifying. Like it's really uncomfortable. I'll tell you, what's true about here's this is all I'll say about this. It's like not every realized being can hit these extremes in a way that doesn't just drag a whole bunch of people down, into the depths, of confusion with them. Like this is the point of arising as enlightened beings. That again, like I think we're enlightenment is enlightenment in the human body in this realm, in this form, is something that I think is extremely misunderstood, is understudied, is too romanticized, and it's too close to the idea of perfection for us to understand the intense complexity of enlightenment in a human body. Like that's like we have to like you hear enlightenment, you're just like, oh, perfect. It's not perfect. You can't express perfection in a system that's essentially flawed, because the system will inform how you're showing up. Right? You can't achieve a perfect enlightenment outside of the conditioning of a system. You may know the conditioning of the system, you may get that, but you're still functioning in the system. Because you function in the system because you made a commitment to be in the system, trying to get people free. There's a risk that comes with that. Big risk, actually, quite frankly. It doesn't require causing harm. It may entail experiencing a lot of discomfort, you know. I think you're right to be afraid of enlightenment. I mean, quite frankly, it's you know, enlightenment costs. It costs. It's the most expensive thing one can do in the living in the world of the physical, the relative world, right? It's very costly because it's an experience that a majority of beings are not familiar with, and it's hard for us to actually understand what we. I'm sorry, I didn't finish the sentence, but anyway, I forgot what I was saying. Anyway, um, we don't know what enlightenment looks like because enlightenment isn't a common thing. You know, it's an anomaly. So enlightenment is a permanent state, but not in the relative. Enlightenment, it's like for bodhisattvas to take rebirth in the relative, you have to go back to sleep to get into the system. Ooh, there's another Matrix reference that I will not make because I'm practicing discipline, right? There are stories of great enlightened masters who are said to be born, who are said to have been born enlightened, but even that's even rarer. To transition back into this relative situation, you have to go back to sleep. But because you've achieved enlightenment in the formless, the possibility of waking up again, I don't want to say it's guaranteed, but it's highly likely that you'll wake up in the dream. It's like lucid dreaming. Like so it's like lucid dreaming. In a lucid dream, you don't if you ever lucid dreamed before, like you don't transcend the rules of the dream. You're still in the dream. You have a lot of agency and you realize it's a dream, but you can't, like the dream is still a container that you're functioning within. Enlightenment is an anomaly. Like it's not what's supposed to happen. you know, in samsara. So you wake up, you like enlightenment is lucid dreaming, right? Um, you can't break the rules of the dream, but you have a lot of agency to move through the dream and do things. But it's a dream. Like you can't ultimately get free until you make a choice to transcend out, to leave the program, right? But a bodhisattva will stay as long as they can because their bodhicitta or their compassion or this wish to free beings is so strong. The bodhicitta is the operating system. You're operating within a desire to get people free, therefore you're here, right? And because you're still bound by the dream, there are times when the dream wins. You don't know. Yes, you don't know who's enlightened. That's the tricky thing about this. We just don't know because there's no blueprint. Enlightenment isn't a cookie cutter experience. So we have the Buddha, like we have the archetypal Buddha, right? But the Buddha represents Shakyamuni Buddha represented one experience of enlightenment. Machik Ladrin, who's a great Tibetan female practitioner who created Cha, was another kind of enlightenment. The Dalai Lama is a different kind of enlightenment. Trungpa Rinpoche was another kind of enlightenment. Like the person who achieves enlightenment and no one will ever know, who's just kind of moving through the world doing their own thing, that's another kind of enlightenment. Jesus was yet another kind of enlightenment. We want enlightenment to be the end of struggle. Enlightenment isn't the end of struggle. As long as you're here, as long as you've made a commitment to be on this earth, there's still going to be a struggle. Like you have to resign yourself to struggle. And struggle doesn't have to be suffering, but it will be resistance. Like there is a resistance, right, to trying to crash this overall system, trying to crash the dream. See how good I'm being? And I haven't even gone into a whole diatribe about the matrix. Like it's wonderful. Like see, I can teach without using the matrix. It is quite possible to do so. The Dharma of the Matrix class. I'm not even ready for that. It'll take me like hours to get through 5 minutes of the matrix. There's a lot of discipline, yeah. A lot of discipline around the matrix. So where did we start? How did I get here? What was the question? Yeah, expanding the mind awareness. It's disrupting. But once you've hit the extremes and you come back into the middle, you shouldn't be afraid of the extremes anymore because you developed an awareness of the nature of the extremes. Like you have to go to the extreme to know what the extreme is. and to break through the extreme, and so forth, Phenomenal reality wants us, well, because phenomenal reality isn't actually happening. That's why it wants us, like you're having a dream that doesn't need to happen. There's no need for samsara. Samsara has arisen. Now, I really can't get into why that happens. Like that's as we say, that's beyond my pay grade. I can't get into that rabbit hole. The origins, I don't know. Um, Everything is wanting you to wake up, but we interpret everything as wanting us to stay awake because we're so tied to the fear and the terror. Once you get past the terror and the fear, reality, the phenomenal world, even the trauma begins to pulsate with a kind of once you get past the terror, you begin to experience the subtle fragility of the phenomenal world, as if realizing that if you train even harder, you could crack this world open because it's that fragile. Because everything that you've invested in, particularly the terror, the fear, the ego, everything that you've fallen into that has previously reinforced the strength of reality, like you're moving through that, and that strength is decreasing, is weakening, and the realness of the world loses vitality. And you start, maybe for the first time, believing that if you go a little bit further, you can crack this shit wide open. Because essentially, you're no longer believing in it. Now, I'm just going to make one Matrix reference here. This is the part where Neo, at the end of the third film, or the first film, end of the first film, where he just wakes up. He's like, oh, shit, like this is a dream, right? That casual, informal, sudden shift in perspective. It's like you just kind of shifted your head and saw things from another angle, and you go, oh, that's what's happening. I've been focused here, and then you change your attention to focus there, and then you go, oh, that's it. And it gets exciting because you have something that you can use to help people with. Right? So you're cracking the world, right? It's the world, it's your mind that's trying to like break through these false barriers of the world. But when you change your perspective, you say, oh, the world is my mind. So actually, I have the agency to cut right through this. I've always had the agency, I just never believed it. Once the barriers within the mind are dissolved, in the mind, the illusion of barriers and boundedness gets swept away, and then the mind becomes itself again. But if you're in the body, if you're in this realm, you have to come back to ego, right? If you're committed to free beings, you're coming back to ego. If you're not, you just you're free. Hmm. Yeah, that's right. What everyone's saying is right. Hans is correct. You know, you're not stuck in the extremes, but you're moving through the extremes. Isn't this fun? Isn't this esoteric discussion, abstract discussion fun? Listen, I used to early in my practice, I would walk into discussions like this with lamas talking in the shed, and I would be like, I don't know what the fuck is happening. I just came here to meditate. As some of you did, come here tonight just to meditate, but you're getting this esoteric thing that will probably not make sense, for a very long time. Mm. What are the extremes? The extremes. What are the extremes? Well, it's up to you, actually, to determine what those extremes are. Um, it's like contemplating who you think you are now and then imagining what it would be like to be completely different. That's how you get into it. You know, you'll forget this talk in the morning. Don't worry. I will. I'm already forgetting it. I have no idea what I've been saying. Literally, I'm like, God, I have this tea and I haven't drank it. So I don't know how much I'm gonna be able to take you into this place that I was thinking about earlier, but I'll tell you what, before we get into our practice, I just, it's what I learned in graduate school and what I learned just from studying with masters and having my own experiences is very much night and day. You know, it's hard to capture in scholarship what is always fluid and changing and shifting. You study the old ancient meditation texts, and it's like, and we say, well, this is the experience we all should be having, which is problematic because the ultimate reveals itself to us in different ways. Even as a Dharma practitioner, Buddhist practitioner, like it's going to be revealed differently. So the texts that we study about the mind and the stages of mind and development, particularly the jhanas, in Theravada Buddhism, study the stages of the consciousness, right? Like they don't, those texts don't fully articulate the nuances and the contradictions as well of these higher states of awareness. Thus, we practice. This is why we practice. You know, Cruelty is one extreme, the correct. But even, listen, I know half of us are confused right now. I may be part of the on the confused side, you know, but the vibration for many of you has already been raised. So that's I think that's something you can trust, right? Um, but how do you feel? If for those of you who are having maybe a discernible experience, like how are you feeling? What's your mind like? What's your body like? And you want to start tuning into energy. Not, everything is energy, right? But there is a particular feeling or quality of energy radiating, moving through our experience that we can begin to identify, to name. It's like going into a sensation, but letting go of, mm, it's hard to articulate, right? You're not feeling a sensation, you are experiencing a sensation. The experience is the energetic expression of the sensation, but that energetic expression is the same energetic expression of all phenomena. And in just a second, I want to actually move us into the breath. And so if you're not working with the breath, you can't be with the breath. I'll give an alternative practice. But to begin with, just working with those of you who are working with the breath, I encourage you just to shift your attention to the breath. Just first beginning noticing the in breath and the out breath. I don't want you to change the breath or manipulate the breath, just noticing that you're breathing. So I invite you to shift the the breath down to the heart center. So imagine that you're breathing in and out of the heart center. And for those of you not using the breath, again, just shifting your attention just to the heart center for now. And so for everyone, I invite you to imagine that the body is like a balloon that's inflated, filled with air. So the internal body, essentially, there's no physicality, but just space, right? And energy. So the body is like hollow, but it's still filled, inflated with this energy. And this energy, tonight we'll call prana, life force energy for now. And as you breathe into the heart center, it's like you're just inflating the body with more of this pranic energy. As breath and prana are interconnected, that's pranayama, right? So as you're breathing in, you're also inhaling in more energy into the body. As you exhale, you're also releasing energy. So it's not like you're filling yourself up so you can bust. It's like the inhale and the exhale maintains an equilibrium. But the point is that we're connecting to how energy is moving in and out of the body through the breath. If you're not working with the breath, just continuing imagining the body is just a balloon filled with energy. I don't think we're going to do the mantra tonight because there's something here that we just want to go just a little bit deeper with, and I think the mantra would disrupt that. So if you're working with the breath, imagine that with each in-breath into the heart center, your awareness is moving deeper and deeper into this body of energy, where our awareness slowly just begins to mingle, expand, and expand. into this hollow body full of energy. So slowly, what does it feel like for your awareness to mingle internally with this experience of energy held in the body? And in this space of allowing awareness to kind of mingle within this energy, we can start getting maybe a slight taste or experience of freedom. And when you're able to really let go and just touch, even briefly, into this nature of the body, then you're simultaneously touching into the nature of everything, including the mind. Okay. I'm going to slowly start transitioning out of this. So slowly, I want you to imagine that the body just starts forming again. So the solidity, the weight of the body comes back into focus. And you're beginning to notice the weight of your body making contact with the seat under you. Again, feeling the weightiness of the body, feeling the sensation of the body making contact with the seat, allowing that to really draw your attention lower to the ground, to the earth. When you're ready, going even further, touching into the earth. If some part of your body is touching the ground or the floor under you, that's your connection to the earth. If you're lying on the floor or something, that's your connection. Or you can just shift your attention to the earth itself and allowing the energetic expression of earth elements to meet you. And when you feel that connection, and however way you're making that connection, I want you to say your prayer. Literally say your prayer. I want you to say, Earth, please hold me. Please gently anchor me into your love and your compassion. Please hold me close to you. So when you're ready, just beginning to add some simple, slow movements to really begin to awaken the body a little more. Um, let's see, there's a question here, which maybe I should have answered before we went into this. So basically, the implications of terror for those of us who are experiencing mental illness and not wanting to go back into that psychosis in the body. Um, you don't want to bypass, but also not interested in being stuck in psychosis again. I know like this answer is just it's very I think it illustrates in the ways in which I've been so deeply influenced by indigenous practice and the ways that I've been kind of led into indigenous practice by shamans and elders. But I think I really think it's about praying to and relying on really powerful beings around us who can actually help us navigate these real issues around trauma that we're experiencing. When we get deeper into these practices, I think it's when we just pray to the earth, that's my practice. It's literally my practice when I feel as if I'm really out of my body or I feel as if I'm vibrating too high. It's just like coming back to the earth. You know, like I can experience fear of these experiences of my body and my mind. I'm really interested in us asking for help instead of thinking that I just have to do this alone. That if I get triggered, I'm in this alone. Like I have to rely on my practices or my modalities, right? I just think there are beings like it's not just even just beings around us, but I think there's a consciousness of of our physical bodies that's waiting to be activated through supplication, through being asked to help. This is one of the things I've learned in ceremony about my body is that my body is actually quite conscious and aware, and that I had to like just start asking my body to meet me somewhere, to meet me halfway, or to meet somewhere, right? Um, that the body wants to move through these stuck experiences of energy as much as we want to, and combining both the intention of the body with our own intention creates a force, and it creates a web of care that can actually help us release and move through these energies. Not just the body again, but all this benevolent energy around us is waiting to be activated if we can just ask for help. And that's prayer. I mean, essentially, it's prayer. Okay. All right. All righty. So, mm, um, mental health issues will. Mental health issues will for me too. I've worked hard to ground myself to grow in schizophrenia rather than. So I have. So I've been thinking about enlightenment. So again, it's we talk about the loss of self. I go back to like how can we ask for help? Like it's a lot of like I am. Mm, um, and when I'm in that space, it's like okay, I just need to reach out for help. And again, this is why again the seven homecomings practice. I want us to start using like it's the way. Okay, I don't want to get into this tonight, but I'll just briefly say it's the way colonization has disrupted this more indigenous experience of connectivity and belonging to not just the physical world but the unseen world, and the way that like we grow up distrusting that. And again, this is why tantra was so exciting for me. Tibetan Buddhism, all this was so exciting because it was like welcome back to the unseen world. you know so asking for help, reaching out for help when I feel unsteady, unsure, I ask for help, right? Okay. But if you would like more practice homework, um, I want you to practice. I've been working. My writing this week for the past couple of days has been actually about prayer. I want to. I want you, if you're new, like I just want you to just start experimenting with prayer, asking for help. Is all you. It's not a procedure. It's not a ritual. It's like when I need help, I ask for it. You know, when you're like looking for the ketchup at the grocery store and you're confused and lost, like I usually am because grocery stores don't make sense. I'm like, okay, I stop and I ask, please guide me to what I need because I need to get the hell out of here. Who knows, right? Um, this is part of our magic. I don't want to keep talking too because I know we have to get out of here. So I vowed not to do 2 hour sessions again, but this is part of the, and this is especially too for like I don't my connection to my indigenous ancestors has been broken for a couple of generations now. And I'm like just in the past 2 years reconnecting, to my ancestral indigeneity, particularly Native American indigeneity, Cherokee indigeneity to be specifically, right? Um, but those of you who are directly descendant, like you're indigenous identified, and colonization is still working that number on you, right? Because we see and indigenous, at least the indigenous communities I've been a part of in South America and here in the United States, where the colonization, particularly in South America, Catholicism, and here, colonization disrupting these experiences of being connected. You know, you know, we have to connect again. You have to connect. You have to bridge the barrier between this world and the next world, and just reach out for the help. I don't know. I don't want to keep preaching about this. This is, you know, um, I don't think this is like, it's not 700 people. It's much less. This is cumulative. Um, I rely on the kindness of strangers. I mean, that's literal. Like, I really, like, we all do. Like, we all literally actually rely on the kindness of strangers, people and beings we have never met. Well, probably not in this life. I'm sure we've met them in other lives, but beings that we have no idea, both living and unseen, who are helping us. There are beings around us who are just protecting us. We have ancestors who are protecting us, deities and Buddhas, and so forth, right? And then just people in this world who are just helping us, who don't need to be seen, they don't need to be celebrated. They're just committed to our well-being, to our survival. And how wonderful would it be to have a practice that intentionally opened to receiving this care? How free would we be? What kind of community would we form? What would be the sense of belonging? How could we cut through these intense experiences of isolation and loneliness if we could connect to the care and the love and the help that we're always receiving, regardless of who we are? All right. So Nikki, you can go ahead and put up Shantadeva's prayer if you have it available, and we can sign off. Okay, so here's Shantadeva's prayer. So we'll recite this 3 times together to close out our time. And I want to thank Nikki for offering tech support tonight, and as well. So thank you so much. Okay, so let's begin. So reciting this prayer 3 times. May I be a protector to those without protection, a leader for those who serve, and a boat. I'm sorry. Let's start. So let's start one more time. I'm thinking about 10 other things. Okay, one more time. May I be a protector to those without protection, a leader for those who journey, and a boat, a bridge, a passage for those desiring the further shore. May the pain of every living creature be completely cleared away. May I be the doctor and the medicine, and may I be the nurse for all the sick beings in the world until everyone is healed. Just like space and the great elements such as earth, may I always support the life of all the boundless creatures. And until they pass away from pain, may I also be the source of life for all the realms of varied beings that reach into the ends of space. May I be a protector to those without protection, a leader for those who journey, and a boat, a bridge, a passage for those desiring the further shore. May the pain of every living creature be completely cleared away. May I be the doctor and the medicine, And may I be the nurse for all sick beings in the world until everyone is healed. Just like space and the great elements such as earth, may I always support the life of all the boundless creatures. And until they pass away from pain, may I also be the source of life for all the realms of varied beings that reach into the ends of space. And finally, may I be a protector to those without protection, a leader for those who journey, and a boat, a bridge, a passage for those desiring the further shore. May the pain of every living creature be completely cleared away. May I be the doctor and the medicine, and may I be the nurse for all sick beings in the world until everyone is healed. Just like space and the great elements such as earth, may I always support the life of all the boundless creatures. And until they pass away from pain, may I also be the source of life for all the realms of varied beings that reach into the ends of space. Okay, everyone. Thank you so much. Check our calendars, Bumi Sparsha's calendar and my personal calendar for events. For those of you who are doing Love and Rage with me, this cohort, I'll see you all on Friday. You'll be working with Sister Sadada and Vivian this coming Wednesday. On Thursday, Sister Sadada and I will be doing a Instagram Live event at 2 o'clock Eastern Standard, or is it Eastern Time? What is it? Eastern Standard, Eastern. I forget. I just learned this like last year. Anyway, Eastern Time, 2 o'clock p.m. on Instagram. If you miss it, of course, it will be posted up to review. And we'll be exploring grief and I guess something else. Grief and the passing of elders and great beings and something in that circle. And stay connected with Ruby Spar Show. We're doing small groups again. We have two, Lama Justa and I are each doing 2 groups this month. So look out for the emails to get scheduled for a group. And I think that is it for me. Okay. Thank you, everyone. And if you have questions that I didn't get to, please remember them for next week, and go ahead and post those again next week. Okay. All right. Well, that's it. Thank you, everyone. I think that's all I have to say.